What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first edition of the Stardom Situm Show for a brand new season presented by Mythical Games. I am Marcus Grant. He is Adam Rank. Normally, Michael F. Florio is hanging out with us, but he is off.
It's his column.
It is
what
his column.
What is he doing?
I don't know. He's in parts unknown.
What? That seems weird.
It does seem
We're going to sit here and talk about another man's list? Like, I don't have the capability of making my own list?
I don't know. Would you like to write Stardom Situm again this year?
No. I do the flex rankings now.
Okay.
Because my last name's Rank.
That makes sense.
It lends itself.
It really does work out well. But we are going to talk about Michael F. Florio's Stardom Situm list. You can go check that out, of course, at NFL.com/startsit. We got plenty to talk about. We'll talk about, obviously, the starts and sits, trending players, sleepers, and the players that will get you into Club Dub. They will score 25 or more points this week. So let's get started by looking at Florio's top quarterbacks for the list, the guys he says you should start and the guys he says you should sit. So his stardom side, Tua Tagovailoa, Geno Smith, Anthony Richardson. I have all three of those guys across multiple rosters this season. The Situm guys, Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones, Aaron Rodgers, which seems like a little bit of shade.
Why doesn't he like Danny Jones? Like that? Isn't his team the Giants?
No, he's a Bills fan.
Oh.
Other New York team.
Whatever.
And Kenny Pickett going against the 49ers. Let's talk about Anthony Richardson, because I know, Rank, everybody's worried about him as a passer, but the fact that he runs the football means he should be okay this week.
I mean, it's exactly what happened last season with Justin Fields. And I think that the Indianapolis Colts would probably like to follow the same model where your quarterback develops and you feel like you have your quarterback of the future, and yet you lose every game and end up with the number one overall pick, which they wouldn't use on Caleb Williams because if Anthony Richardson's playing well, but you could flip it to a team like the Rams who might need a quarterback. But I think that what we're going to see and what we're starting to see out of NFL teams now is a mindset of tailoring your system to the quarterback's strengths. And I think a lot of time back in the olden days, you'd draft a player and you'd be like, you got to throw it this way and you got to do this. Now they just let them go out there and do their thing. And I think the Colts will play to his strength, which will be great for fantasy. Might not help the Colts win many games, though.
What a novel idea of building around the strengths
crazy.
of your franchise player. I worry a little bit about him in week one. I have other options that I'm sort of hedging my bets with, but I'm interested to watch Anthony Richardson play this week against the Jaguars. Now, he's got Aaron Rodgers.
But it's not like the Jags defense is that good where you're like, oh, I gotta avoid the Jags.
They were, in fantasy, they were like a top 5 or 6 defense. I mean, in real life, yeah, they weren't very good. But in fantasy, they worked out well.
I think you're fine if you have.
For whatever that works. On the other side, Aaron Rodgers is a sit for Florio. I see you scoffing already.
Now it makes sense. Okay, if he's a Bills fan.
He's playing the Bills, which feels like it feels personal is what that feels like.
Yeah, Sean McDermott is now taking over the defense for the Buffalo Bills, who've actually lost some players, including Tremaine Edmonds. I'm curious to see how that works out. I think a lot of times that once these teams get into the Super Bowl window, they just get kissed into it. Like, oh yeah, like I have some questions. I don't know how it's going to work for the head coach also running the defense. It also filters down to Ken Dorsey being left to his own devices. I'm curious, but there's no way that I'm sitting Aaron Rodgers.
I am not sitting Aaron Rodgers this week. I think there will be ups and downs throughout the season, but week one doesn't feel like that. Week one feels like I'm out here to prove a point. I'm going to show everybody why the Jets really went all in on me. I'm going to feed Garrett Wilson a ton of targets. I think this game's going to be really high scoring.
Does he sit in Garrett Wilson?
That's a good question. I would imagine not. I would think, I don't know. We'll see his wide receiver list in a second, but I'm in on Rodgers this week. Maybe other weeks, maybe not so much, but this week for sure.
I'm good with him, yeah.
All right, which I appreciate this growth from you, being willing to praise Aaron Rodgers.
No, but he's a good player. I played him I had one season where I had him as a backup, but I had him on my team in one of his MVP years, the first year they drafted Jordan Love.
Okay.
And it was the same thing that everybody was like, you're crazy. Like, Aaron Rodgers is washed. They drafted this guy from Utah State. You're like, yeah, he's super petty. He's going to play better than ever, which is exactly what's going to happen in New York.
He is super petty. That is without a doubt. Let's take a look at Florio's wide receiver list here. No Garrett Wilson. I'm assuming Garrett Wilson falls into the start category for him. Chris Olave a start. Johan Dotson, or Johan Dotson, I guess as we're calling him nowadays.
That's how you say Johan.
Johan has an O in it, isn't it?
How do you say quesadilla?
Quesadilla.
Exactly. That's the way it's pronounced. It's
okay.
Yo.
Johan Dotson, Drake London, and the combination of Mike Evans and or Chris Godwin. They are starts against the Vikings. On the other side, Gabe Davis is a sit. I guess he's trying to show that he's not biased by sitting
that's such a classic move of like, no, look, I'm not biased. I'm sitting a guy from my team. The worst guy.
Michael Pittman, Marquise Brown, and Rashad Bateman going against the Houston Texans. So let's talk about the aforementioned Johan Dotson going against the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, we all like Terry McLaurin. We get it. He's
but there's
awesome.
injury concerns with him.
He is.
And even though he's practiced this week.
And I believe he's been cleared to play this week.
He practiced in full on Thursday. We're recording this before the practice report comes out on Friday. So we are assuming he's going to be a full goal. But even if he does go, how is he going to be limited? And if Arizona is as bad as we believe they're going to be, then are they going to throw? Is there going to be the volume? And then Dotson would be the guy I think benefits. And last year, they were really targeting Dotson more than McLaurin, so I feel good with that.
I like Dotson a lot. He was a guy, especially where you were able to draft him.
Oh my God, yeah.
In like the 8th, 9th, later, or something like that. I love what he brings, and we liked the Commanders receivers last year when like Taylor Heineke was throwing because he was willing to take shots downfield. I think Sam Howell is going to be that guy this year. You know, I'm dubious on whether I'm starting Howell, but I like what he does for the wide receivers. And I like your point. Even if McLaurin plays, how much of a full go can he be? So that leans toward Jahan Dotson getting a lot of targets. On the other side, we saw Michael Pittman as a sit. We talked about Anthony Richardson as a start, but that's more about Richardson as a runner and not so much as a passer this week.
Because a lot of fantasy leagues are also 4 points for a passing touchdown. So that's why we like Anthony Richardson. So if you're confused by that, we're counting on Anthony Richardson running for 40 yards, possibly running for a touchdown. But who are going to be his receivers who benefit? How much is he going to throw for? What's the volume going to look like? That's the reason why we pass on Michael Pittman.
Yeah, the Jaguars, I think, will be able to score. I don't know that the Colts can keep up offensively, and I think that's going to hurt Pittman, Alec Pierce, go down the list.
But it's the first week, too, and things are always a little bit – I mean, even last night, the Thursday night game was a little bit lower scoring than I think people had hoped.
Yeah, we were hoping for like 40 points.
We're going to see that across the board in a lot of these games.
That feels sort of like the case, and this could be a low-scoring game between these teams. That gets us to what we're calling How We Feeling, where we rip through some guys that are getting talked about on social media and let you know if they should be in your lineups this week. So, Rank, we'll start with Dalvin Cook going against the Buffalo Bills. How
Absolutely no. We're going to avoid the Jets' backfield. One of the problems is they've got three guys, including Breece Hall and Michael Carter, and they even said that Dalvin Cook's going to take a little bit of time to get back. So, if I had to start one, it would be Breece Hall. But I think that just means that Michael Carter scores a pair. Yeah,
Robert Saleh said they're going to, quote, be smart with how they use these guys in week one. So it probably is, maybe less usage than we would have liked. DeAndre Hopkins against the Saints, I'm telling you, I think he's fine to start. I think he's a wide receiver too. This is not a high-volume passing offense. They still run through Derrick Henry primarily, but you don't bring in a guy like DeAndre Hopkins and not throw him the football, especially with Treylon Burks being sort of banged up. Like you mentioned, Rank, I don't think there's going to be a lot of points across the NFL this weekend. I don't see a lot of points in this game, but DeAndre Hopkins is going to get targets. I'm not really worried about that one. DJ Moore for the Bears going against the Packers. How you feeling?
Starting him. I mean, you saw what he was able to do. His yak yardage in the preseason was off the charts. He's never had a quarterback this good. The ghost of Cam Newton. He wasn't playing with peak Cam Newton. I love DJ Moore this season. It's a tough matchup because obviously the Packers have 9, 10 first-round draft picks on that defense. But because of plays like this, these are the reasons why you have DJ Moore in your lineup.
And target volume. I mean, he's going to get a lot of opportunities. I think it's him and probably Darnell Mooney. And then
and then Bob. Well, no, they got Bob Tunyon.
That's right.
They can also throw the ball to Khalil Herbert. So
Kirk Cousins against the Buccaneers? Absolutely yes. This game is going to – we talk about low scoring. This game could be a score fest just because both these teams are going to throw the ball a lot.
This will be one I consider to be high scoring.
The Vikings defense is still bad. Kirk Cousins is going to throw the ball to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson. I think a lot of points are coming in this game. I would start Kirk Cousins. If you have a quarterback that's sort of mid and you're worried about, I start him. The man that I guess we're calling Bijan Robinson now.
I saw that note come through the research packet where it's Bijan Robinson, which is fine. That's cool. You drafted him in the first round. You're not sitting him. I really do believe that Tyler Algier will have a bigger role than people will like, similar to what David Montgomery did on Thursday evening. But I still think that there's no chance that you're sitting Robinson against the Panthers.
Yeah, I drafted Tyler Algier because I think he still has a role, but it is going to be the Robinson show in Atlanta. Van Jefferson against the Seattle Seahawks, I'd really rather not. And I say this as a guy who's been a self-proclaimed Van stan over the last couple of years, but he's just not really a high target earner. He's a guy who has spike weeks and then will disappear for long stretches at a time. Tyler Higbee's going to get a lot of work. Puka Nacua is that guy.
Peter Schrager and I are both been on record this week of going in on Puka Nacua.
You know what? I took a lot of late round shots at Puka Nacua, so I believe that there's something there. I just don't have enough confidence, though, in Van Jefferson to put him in the lineup. Zay Flowers, another guy, though, that I really like this week. You like him against the
This
Texans.
place, you guys love B-roll, much like the Fantasy Life team. Goodness gracious. Do you guys get paid per the B-roll? Zay Flowers against the Texans. I don't know. I want to see the way that this Ravens offense unfolds under Todd Monken. Who's going to be the lead primary target getter? Is it going to be Mark Andrews? OBJ's in the mix. We got Zay Flowers. They're going to be running the football. I like J.K. Dobbins. I'm interested to see how that running back by committee works out. Are they going to lean on one guy? I would love it to be J.K. Dobbins, but for Zay Flowers, I'm probably leaving him on the bench without seeing,
I think I threw him in a lineup, but I understand your
There are
concern.
teams, there's leagues with enough people.
Where you're probably
like,
gonna
I gotta play
I
him.
got to start him
Yeah.
this week. Last one is Ramondre Stevenson against the Eagles. I'm not starting Ramondre Stevenson.
Wait, he
because-
didn't practice on Friday,
That's not great.
but we don't know what it is.
No idea. If he's playing, I'm not
Or they didn't
starting
see him. They didn't see him in practice, the initial report.
I'm not really so much worried about Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, Zeke will get his touches, and he'll probably get some touchdowns as well. But Ramondre is the guy in New England. What worries me is the Eagles' defense and just whether or not the Patriots can move the ball and score. But Ramondre is going to get plenty of touches. He's going to get some targets as well. I like the upside there. So I'm not super excited about it, but I'm also not willing to leave him on my bench as long as he's playing for New England this week. Coming up. What's that?
Go ahead.
Oh,
I was
okay.
looking up his practice status.
Okay, coming up, we're talking about tight ends. Also talking about how you can dominate your competition this week, which really is the whole point of this whole show. That's more as you stick around here on the Stardom Sit-'em Show, presented by Mythical Games. Talking tight ends. Rank, do you want to read his Stardom Sit-'em tight ends here?
Of course, he's got Kyle Pitts.
We all love Kyle Pitts here.
Jawan Johnson, last season, 7 receiving touchdowns just Travis Kelce and George Kittle had more. Okay, he's a Bills fan. But Dalton Kincaid's very good. The story of Dalton Kincaid is fascinating. A lot of people don't know this. I saw him play at USD.
Yeah,
he was a Torero.
Colleges. That's right.
He was a Torero, and then he was playing like Cal Poly. He was playing like, not Sonoma State, but one of those schools, one of those rando schools. And now everybody's like, oh, he's the next Travis Kelce. Although I think I've said that. I don't like that Greg Dulcich is on this sit-'em list. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I'm not feeling that.
New Orleans, brutal against tight ends. And if Chig Okonkwo was somebody that you picked up because of Travis Kelce, then you want to do it. But he doesn't want to go Dalton Schultz against the Ravens. I don't know. Maybe it's the matchup. But I think he could end up being the targets leader for them.
I love that he split the difference between Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. Like
The
one
Dawson.
one was a
The
start.
Dawson's the blocking type. That's the big thing. Like, Dalton Kincaid is not going to block.
All right.
He's just there to pass.
We're supposed to talk about Dalton Kincaid.
That was
now.
it.
We
I
just
wrapped it up.
talked
We
about
did it.
Dalton Kincaid a lot. I'll talk about Dalton Kincaid if you guys want to run some B-roll of Dalton Kincaid.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. They got their B-roll
Look,
quota.
I still have a
Some
hole.
biz up. Cut this tape last night, Rank. Make sure they get it in the show.
I still have a hole in my heart because Dalton Kincaid pretty much ripped it out against USC last year when he caught like 11
Was it you?
balls
You did
for them
Okay.
and during the regular season while he was still at Utah. We're starting to buy into rookie tight ends, at least in this class, because I love Sam Laporta.
Well, you look at the guys that don't block. Is the guy like that's the one reason why a lot of these guys take forever to be able to make the transition, because you got to learn how to block like a lineman and run a route like a receiver. They're like, Dalton Kincaid's not blocking anybody.
Just
like Kyle Pitts 2 years ago. Did not block anybody, had 1,000 receiving yards. was on pace for 100 targets last year. Hasn't blocked a lick in the NFL.
And now they're making him block, and so now we're frustrated about Kyle Pitts. But Dalton Kincaid, just run routes, catch footballs. That should be great.
He really did look like the college Travis Kelce.
He really did.
He really
and he was
did
wearing
look
red. That's what made it
That's
even
really
more likely. So we like Dalton Kincaid. We don't like Dawson Knox because Dawson Knox blocks.
He blocks.
Knox blocks.
Knox blocks. It's as simple as that. Like
Yeah.
he's probably not going to get the target share. He will end up being the first guy that scores a touchdown for the Bills, and everybody's going to be upset. I think they're anticipating it being James Cook. But it's either going to be Dawson Knox or it's going to be some other rando that I'm not thinking of.
Knox blocks wearing socks. Knox blocks with a fox. Knox blocks in the box. For that reason, we're not starting Dawson Knox.
No.
Which means I can't do any weird Dawson Knox puns or sing the Dawson's Creek song. What starts to be over? Enough of that. It's time to dominate your rivals, presented by Mythic Games. We're talking about some under-the-radar guys that you need to start this week to win your matchup. So first, who do you have?
Well, I don't know how under the radar George Pickens is after this draft season, where a lot of people were very excited about him to the point that Deontay Johnson started to fall behind him in drafts. But last year, George Pickens had 33% of the Steelers receiving touchdowns, and we anticipate that being a similar case. Like he looks like the guy who's going to be catching the touchdowns. And even with a difficult matchup against the 49ers, they got a couple of new faces, some injuries. I think that George Pickens is a safe enough play this week.
I think he's going to get some YOLO balls from Kenny Pickett. That alone is going to sort of help him out. I love Gerald Everett this week, especially if you didn't have Travis Kelce go for you on Thursday and you need some tight end help. We keep talking about this new offense with Kellen Moore and how it looks like the Chargers want to be more vertical. We know what Mike Williams can do. We know what Keenan Allen can do, but I think there's a lot of room for Gerald Everett to operate, especially if the Dolphins sort of want to play a couple high safeties and try to cut off the deep ball. That means just more room for Gerald Everett to operate. This is a big group of pass catchers. I mean, like physically large. They have a lot of tall guys.
The Chargers have a type. Like all their guys going back to like David Boston,
right?
Who they signed as a free agent. They always have these big, tall guys.
Yeah.
Like even Keenan Allen's super tall. And yet here comes Austin Eckler. A little guy. He's about this size.
He's short, but he's not actually small. He's very stout.
Well, I mean, yeah.
But yes, he's not
like
a tall
MJD
tall person.
is stout too.
He's not a tall person.
But not tall.
It says here you're talking about Younghoe Koo. I didn't know if you remember.
Oh, cut the B-roll for that. Vizop, roll it.
Oh,
roll the tape. There it is.
There it is.
I would have been more impressed if you went back and found the Younghoe Koo tape of him as a Charger. Because it's so funny to me that the Chargers always have kicking problems.
Like now
and they cut
the best,
guy in the game. You know what? We all love like this Falcons offense. Like just dig it. The thing is, Desmond Ridder should be good enough to move them into field goal range. Maybe not good enough to convert all those into touchdowns. So I love Younghoe Koo this season.
That's a good line of thinking. And long term, he gets to play at least half of his games in a dome, which
more than half because of the Saints.
That's right, because that's true. So he gets to play a lot of games in a dome, and that's certainly very helpful there.
He's the best.
For me, and this one might sound a little bit crazy, Russ. I think Russ is coming back to our lives. The Russell resurrection begins this week. Sean Payton has come in. He's prevented Russell from having his own special coaches and having his own corner office.
Stop kissing the babies.
Basically, stop trying to be a politician out here. So I think we start to see Russell Wilson come back. He's not going to be the same guy he was in Seattle where he gets you a ton of rushing yards. He'll run just enough. But I think they're going to simplify the offense. They're going to ask him to stay on script the whole time. And on top of it, he gets the Raiders in week 1, which is about as nice a matchup as you could ask for. So if there's ever a chance for you to sort of buy back into the Russell Wilson, can he cook narrative, it's this week.
When he's the QB1, it's going to be amazing.
There's going to be anarchy on
wait.
Twitter when he's the QB1 this week. Speaking of anarchy, we're going to talk about running backs.
Oh, my God.
I don't even know if that makes sense, but that's just what I said.
Sons of Anarchy.
Plus, we're going to Club Dub. So stick around for more of the Stardom Situm Show presented by Mythical Games. Stardom Situm running backs for week 1. You want to read these or should I?
Javonte Williams, James Cook, who is expected to be the RB1 of the Buffalo Bills, J.K. Dobbins, who averaged, close to 6 yards per carry, and Raheem Mostert, Pretty good matchup this week, or a pretty good opportunity for the Miami Dolphins to sit them. You know what? Listen, I don't. First of all, I don't like that Jamal Williams is on this. I don't like the Evan Hull slander. Rachaad White. Okay, if you truly believe that Rachaad White is not going to do well against the Minnesota Vikings, then do yourself a favor right now and go pick up Sean Tucker. Because if Rachaad White doesn't play well, it's because he's benched for Sean Tucker. Remember where you heard it here first. And Najee Harris hate, Najee Harris slander. He's on this sit-em list, not on my sit-em list. He was injured last season. He was playing behind a porous offensive line. Give him a break. He had 94 carries in the last 4 weeks. That was second in the NFL. The Steelers love him. I know that everybody wants to be cool and they want to be like, oh, Jalen Warren. Stop it.
My voice doesn't sound like that.
Don't be that person.
I was that person at several points this offseason.
Don't do it.
Okay. Javonte Williams was on the start list. I talked about Russell Wilson, how I like him against the Raiders. The Raider defense, not very good. How are you feeling about Javonte this week?
Did I not say? Oh, I like it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
One of the things about Sean Payton, what I love that he did, number one, is I love that he took the heat off the entire organization by being the bad guy. Like, by calling out Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett, like, the narrative switched from, like, oh, the Broncos were a disappointment last year to, like, Sean Payton's a jerk. And I think that's what he wants. I think, he's taken a page from Bill Parcells. And the one thing that he really does, though, is get the most out of his running backs, from Reggie Bush to Alvin Kamara and all those, Deuce McAllister. He always finds a way to get the most out of his running backs. So I always want to have a Sean Payton running back, and Javonte Williams at some point. Even Samaje Perine on my roster in a number of places. So I'll take either one of those guys.
Yeah, I was going to mention Samaje Perine, too. I like him this season because Sean Payton likes to use multiple running backs. So Javonte's in play. Samaje Perine is in play.
What's up with these chairs, by the way? Like, I tried to recline earlier, and then I'm, like, super far back.
But they actually recline, like, all the way back, actually. I think like, if you can, like, lean them back or whatever.
Like, this is like an airline.
I do want to take umbrage with Florio having Jamal Williams on the sit list. I love Jamal Williams this week.
What is he doing?
I love him this week, but he's on the sit list, so I guess we have to come up with a reason for why he's on the sit list.
First of all,
Jamal Williams
is a start.
We think he should be a start, but Florio has him as a sit.
That's I'm glad he's not here.
Decide for yourself.
No, sincere. I don't mean that in a bad way.
Do.
No. I don't mean that in a bad way. But I don't want to hear the reason. Like, no.
All right, time now to talk about our Club Dub Players of the Week, the guys that we guarantee will score 25 points or more. You'll get your money back for watching or listening to this show. Who do you like to get in the Club Dub this week?
Well, I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers because I think there's too much history of Aaron Rodgers always rising to the occasion when he's kind of not necessarily backed into a wall, but when he can be at his most extreme pettiness. And I think that we saw it a couple of years ago when they drafted Jordan Love. He went out there and put up back-to-back MVP seasons. And I truly believe, and perhaps I've been swayed by the Hard Knocks hype, that going to New York, he again has something to prove, and it's going to make a grand debut Monday night against the Buffalo Bills.
I just want to know about his UFO encounter. I want more about what happened.
Tom DeLonge does too.
When he saw an alien. I like Chris Olave this week. I like Chris Olave all year, but I especially like him this week against the Tennessee Titans. Getting Derek Carr, I think, really helps. He was dealing with a combination of Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston last year. I think Derek Carr sort of combines the best attributes of both of those guys. He is by far the number one receiver in this offense. The Titans secondary has been an issue over the last couple of years. And with the Saints shorthanded at running back, I like Jamal Williams, but no Alvin Kamara. Kendre Miller is banged up. Chris Olave is going to get a lot more work. They're going to have to throw the football a lot more. Olave is where they're going with it. Big things coming for him in week 1 this season. There it is. Those are our guys who are going to get into Club Dub, give you 25 points or more. Otherwise, I'll give you whatever change I have in my pocket, which is none at all. Anyway, that'll do it for this edition of the Stardom Sit 'em Show presented by Mythical Games. You can check us out all week long through the podcast feed. 5 shows, 5 days. Be sure to check them all out. He's Adam Rank. I'm Marcus Grant. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.